The biting wind howled through the sparse trees lining the rugged terrain of the Montana Territory in the winter of 1885, lashing at 22-year-old Rosa Alvarado's face like a frigid whip. The sharp gusts clawed at her skin, digging into her with each step she took. Her scarred leg throbbed painfully, a constant reminder of the accident that had marred her youth and now framed her life in layers of shame. Each pulsing ache mirrored the relentless cadence of betrayal that echoed in her heart, merging with the howls of the merciless winter wind. "You are nothing but a burden, Rosa," her brother, Rodrigo, had spat at her only hours earlier. The bitterness had dripped from his words, harsh and corrosive. Damaged goods. With those contemptuous utterances, he had cast her aside like refuse, severing the fragile ties that had bound them. Left to fend for herself amidst the indifferent wilderness, she felt the shadows of judgment loom larger than the looming mountains, suffocating her spirit with their oppressive weight. Each step she took was imbued with the echoes of belittlement, her breath forming small clouds as sobs threatened to erupt and choke her throat. As she pressed forward through the deepening snow, the twigs snapping under her unsteady feet sounded like whispered reminders of her isolation. Betrayal was a weighty cloak, wrapping her in disbelief and despair. The world around her faded into eerie silence as the cold crept further inside, seeping into her bones even as the snow began its relentless fall. Everything, once vibrant, now dulled into a shimmering sea of white, entombing her in her own perceived worthlessness. An aura of abandonment suffocated her. The treacherous landscape matched the desolate emotions clawing at her heart, leaving a bitter taste of despair in her mouth. Each gust of wind howled her brother's words like a haunting refrain, reminding her that in the eyes of their community, she was broken, unworthy. Rosa trudged on, her heartbeat pounding a mournful rhythm against the heavy silence, a cadence just as oppressive as the unforgiving terrain. Exhaustion clung to her like frostbite, punctuating every aching joint. She fought against it, but desperation clawed at her throat like a wild animal. Suddenly her legs buckled beneath her, crashing to the ground as the snow enveloped her frail form. The swirling darkness began to seep into her vision, pulling her away from life, away from the pain of betrayal, and deeper into the embrace of oblivion. Just as the last flicker of hope dimmed, a figure emerged from the raging storm, a stark contrast to the despair that engulfed her. Rafael Cortez was known as the Mountain Man, an elusive specter who roamed the rugged expanses of the territory. With a presence forged from years of solitude, he appeared like a guardian, sculpted from the very mountains that loomed around them. Stories of his brooding nature and whispered tales of past sorrows danced in the village, an ever-present shiver that sent chills down the spines of those bold enough to mention him. Few ever approached his realm, and many welcomed his secrecy as confirmation of his nature, mysterious and untouchable. But in this moment, he saw her not as an outcast, but as a soul worth saving. With a strength that belied his rugged appearance, Rafael swept Rosa into his arms, cradling her against him as if she were the most precious thing he had ever held. The warmth of his body enveloped her like a lifeline, contrasting sharply with the cold that sought to overwhelm her senses. "Hold on," he murmured, urgency threading through his voice, urging her to cling to life. The storm swirled around them, chaos and fury engulfing the landscape, but there was a steadiness to his presence that steadied her fractured spirit. As he carried her toward his cabin, her heart began to pound not just with fear, but with an unfamiliar flicker of hope. The cabin was a modest structure, nestled among the tall, stoic pines that stood resolutely against the market forces of nature. It was a refuge of warmth, each timber infused with the labor of a solitary man's hands. Rafael stepped across the threshold, the heat from the hearth embracing them both, a stark contrast to the icy tendrils of the storm outside. "Rest here, food will come soon," he instructed softly, guiding her to a wooden chair near the fireplace as flickering flames began to cast gentle shadows on the walls. The air was filled with the scent of wood smoke and something earthy, a grounding presence amidst the turmoil swirling about them. Yet despite the warmth that surrounded her, Rosa hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at her stomach. Why would he save her? How could he possibly want to help someone deemed so worthless? "Why did you save me?" she managed to voice, her tone barely above a whisper as she searched his eyes. In those depths, she sought any glint of ulterior motives. Would he see her as her brother had? A burden? "Because you're worth saving," he replied simply, his voice steady and resolute. The weight of those words sank into her, washing over her in waves, confronting her years of denial. Perhaps she had once again experienced the remnants of kindness in a world filled with contempt. Perhaps, just perhaps, there remained light amid encroaching shadows. Days turned into weeks, and spring began to unfurl its vibrant arms, teasing out the feel of warmth under her cheeks as she healed. She found herself mending not just from her physical injuries, but also from the emotional scars left by years of neglect. Raphael tended to her with patience and respect, reminding her with each careful gesture that she could be more than her past. As their days melded into weeks, vulnerabilities began to unfurl before one another like the budding flowers that peeked through the thawing earth. He would sit beside her as she recounted the story of her life, the weight of shame spilling out like the last remnants of winter. Every shared moment became a step toward her salvation. His unwavering gaze sparked something within her, a belief that maybe she was not so unworthy after all. "You fight to survive, Rosa, and that's strength," he would say, his voice low yet laced with conviction. With each passing day, Rosa leaned into that truth, allowing warmth to seep into her guarded heart as she navigated this new world. Among the echoes of laughter that often existing between them, she found comfort in shared hardship. Together they forged through the seasons, reshaping life amidst the mountains in a way that was both nurturing and liberating. Yet, just as winter's retreat ushered in spring, the murmurings of her past began to claw at her newfound sanctuary. She was not entirely free from the shackles of her history. Shadows still lingered in the corners of her mind. The realization that the world beyond might soon intrude loomed heavily in the air, tangling with her heart's growing pulse of hope. In this peaceful refuge, Rosa Alvarado began to emerge from her cocoon. With the wind's soft embrace and the haunting poetry that lingered in her heart, she discovered that perhaps healing was not just a distant dream. It could be her reality, a fierce determination igniting within her spirit to reclaim her life. The rising sun spilled a warm golden light over the rugged peaks surrounding the cabin, hinting at a glorious day in the Montana Territory. Rosa Alvarado stood in the kitchen, feeling the fresh air flow in through the open window, bringing with it the sharp scent of pine, mingled with the enticing aroma of bread baking in the oven. She kneaded the dough with practiced hands, drawing on the lessons Raphael had taught her. Each fold and press brought with it a sense of purpose that sparked her heart with renewed warmth. "Good morning, Rosa." Raphael's voice rumbled from the doorway, his broad frame backlit by the glow of the morning sun. His presence filled the room with an easy warmth that made the space feel all the more like home. "Good morning," she replied, her lips curving into a soft smile at the sight of him. It was a smile that had become easier for her to wear since she had come to live with him, a small but essential victory in her journey to reclaim herself. "Is that bread I smell?" He stepped inside, a familiar gleam of mischief lighting his deep-set eyes. "You spoil me." "It's almost ready. I thought I might surprise you." Her heart fluttered at the playfulness of their exchange. "Just one piece will do," he said, his tone teasing. "I wouldn't want to spoil my appetite before our adventure." Rosa felt joy blossom in her chest, a sensation both foreign and exhilarating. She served him a thick slice, their fingers brushing briefly, sending warmth radiating through her from that small point of contact. She poured them each a steaming mug of coffee, delighted to see him enjoying her little surprise. "Is the trail cleared for the trading post?" she asked, her curiosity piquing as she settled down across from him. "Should be, but it's your call. If you want to stay back, I can handle the trip alone," he offered, a flicker of concern crossing his features. "No, I want to come." The determination in her voice was strong, stemming from the empowerment she had found during her time with him. "Just remember, people may stare," Raphael cautioned, his eyes steady and knowing. "I can handle it," Rosa said, her voice firmer now. She felt the weight of his gaze on her, supportive and unwavering. They finished their breakfast, and she relished the way the sun filtered into the cabin, casting playful shadows on the rustic wooden table. Preparing the horses, she joined Raphael outside, watching as he effortlessly secured the saddles on his dark bay stallion and her chestnut mare. The morning air felt charged with anticipation, and Rosa could hardly contain her excitement. "Seems you've made a friend," he commented, watching her stroke the mare's neck as it nickered softly at her. "I think she likes me," Rosa grinned, leaning closer, instinctively craving connection. "Let's hope she does better than some of the folks in town," he replied with a light laugh, guiding his horse and mounting up as she climbed on hers. Riding side by side, they set off down the trail, the rhythmic sound of their horses' hooves striking the earth sinking with their hearts. The landscape around them was breathtaking, the vastness of nature reminding her of life's infinite possibilities. The sun continued to rise, spilling rays into the valley, lighting up the wildflowers that dotted the edges of the path. As they traveled, Rosa found her voice flowing freely, animatedly recounting stories of her childhood, her father's laughter and her mother's warm embrace. Each tale brought a light into the recesses of her heart that had once felt barren. Raphael listened intently, never rushing her, his eyes focused on her with a reverence that made her cheeks flush. "Those stories are remarkable, Rosa," he said with genuine admiration. "You're stronger than most, having gone through what you have yet still finding the beauty to share." His words washed over her like soft rain, nurturing a budding belief about her own strength, a belief that was slowly replacing the lingering doubts that hid under the surface. As they approached the trading post, the air burst with the vibrant sounds of life. Merchants shouted their wares, while the smell of baked goods and fresh produce wafted through the crisp air. Young children played in the dirt, laughter spilling forth like music, reminding Rosa of the joyful innocence she had almost forgotten in the shadows of her past. "Stay close," Raphael urged as they dismounted, the crowd swirling around them. She could feel the weight of their gazes, a cacophony of judgment and curiosity threatening to drown out her newfound confidence. "Let's show them your skills," he encouraged with a wink, nudging her forward gently. Together they navigated the busy stalls, engaging with vendors and exchanging pleasantries. Every interaction felt electric, yet beneath the surface, Rosa sensed the stares probing at her, old fears clawing at her resolve. Her heart quickened, uncertainty licking at her confidence. "Everyone listen," a man atop a crate called out, drawing the crowd's attention. "News has just arrived about the Alvarado estate." The name hit Rosa like a blow to the gut. She felt her breath catch as she froze, a shiver running down her spine. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, eyes turning toward her in a sudden, expectant anticipation. "Rosa." Raphael turned to her, his face filled with concern as he picked up on the change in her demeanor. "Are you all right?" "Let's go," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper, a conflict rising within her. The ghosts of her past loomed closer, rearing their ugly faces to haunt her once more. "Stay with me," he reassured, his hand gripping her forearm with gentle firmness, grounding her in the whirlwind of emotions. Before she could respond, her brother, Rodrigo, pushed through the crowd, his tall figure cutting an authoritative path toward them. His familiar arrogance manifested as he swaggered closer, a smirk painted across his face. "Well, well, if it isn't my sister, returned from the dead." His tone dripped with mockery. "And who do we have here, your protector?" "I'm no one's protector," Raphael said instantly, stepping in front of Rosa, effectively blocking Rodrigo. "I'm just here to ensure she stays safe and asserts her freedom." "Safe?" Rodrigo laughed derisively. "From what, sister? The truth? You cannot escape the past, I guarantee that." Rosa's heart raced. She could feel the blood rushing in her ears. "I'm done being defined by my past," she declared, surprising herself with the fierceness in her tone. Rodrigo's expression shifted, surprise flaring in his eyes momentarily. "Your past?" he sneered. "You'll always be the girl who failed to hold this family together, who brought shame upon us. I have found my strength and my voice, and I will no longer be ashamed of who I am," Rosa responded, her voice steady now, echoing with defiance as she stood alongside Raphael. The crowd around them shifted, some nodding in agreement, while others whispered, captivated by the confrontation unfolding before them. "You think this means something?" Rodrigo snapped, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. "You can't just pretend we're a family when you know we're broken." "I can be free of you," she asserted, her heart pounding, "and this life of shame you embody. Stand aside, Rodrigo. I don't need you anymore." This clarity hung in the air, almost tangible. The onlookers inhaled collectively, sensing the shift in power dynamics. With a mocking laugh, he stepped back, hands raised defensively, yet his contempt still radiated. "You'll regret this, sister," he spat before turning away. The crowd parted for him, murmurs rising once again as his presence receded. Rosa felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had faced the shadow of her past and emerged stronger for it. She turned to Raphael, her eyes wide with adrenaline. I did it." "You did," he replied, his voice warm and filled with pride. "That was incredibly brave." The warmth in his gaze ignited a spark in her heart. As the market buzz resumed, Rosa sensed the air shift. She felt lighter, liberated from the burdens of her history that had clung so tightly. The newfound confidence she'd embraced wove through her heart, solidifying the courage she had summoned. With Rafael beside her, Rosa Alvarado was ready to navigate this new chapter of her life, not just as a survivor, but as a determined woman willing to reclaim her narrative amidst the mountains and the whispers of those who sought to hold her back. Days turned into weeks, weaving a tapestry of growth in the Montana Territory as spring slowly unfurled its verdant arms. The world surrounding Rosa Alvarado became vibrant. Wildflowers painted the hillsides in bursts of color, while the birds sang melodies that filled the air with life. Rosa reveled in this transformation, feeling the warmth of the sun seep into her skin, reminding her of a new beginning. It wasn't just the land that changed. She too was healing from the inside out. Daily activities had morphed into a rhythm that felt like a dance, a collaboration between her and the wilderness that embraced her. Under Rafael's patient guidance, her days were no longer filled with merely survival. Now they were steeped in purpose and action. She rode alongside him at dawn, tending to the livestock and ensuring the remnants of winter gave way to the promise of spring's bounty. "Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty, Rosa," he would say, chuckling as he watched her pull weeds from the garden beds they'd painstakingly planted together. "It's a little late for me to be worried about that," she quipped, her laughter infectious as she learned to embrace the soil beneath her fingernails and the sweat that poured down her back. One sunny afternoon, they were bent over a patch of earth, planting carrots and radishes, when Rafael paused and looked up at her, his expression serious but tender. "You've got a knack for this," he said, glancing at her work with admiration. "You've built almost as good a garden as I could." "I can't wait to see how everything grows," she replied, feeling the budding pride within her swell with each compliment he offered. As the days slipped away, they often found themselves enveloped in moments of laughter and shared stories by the fire at night. Sitting beneath a vast canopy of stars, Rosa began to unfold her life, revealing the layers of her past to Rafael. Conversations flowed easily, transforming the shadows that had long haunted her into anecdotes that lost their power. "I used to dream of traveling far away," she shared one evening, her eyes reflecting the twinkle of the stars above. "But I found myself stuck in a life of expectations. I thought strength was only about survival, but you've shown me it's about so much more." "Strength is also choice," Rafael chimed in, "choosing to open up, to forgive yourself, and to move forward. I'm proud of you, Rosa." His words wrapped around her, filling the hollow spaces within, healing parts she thought would remain forever broken. In those silent moments, the unspoken words between them revealed a profound connection, a partnership that began to blossom amidst the lush wilderness that surrounded their cabin. Yet, as with all things beautiful, the shadows of her past lingered just beyond the horizon, like storm clouds threatening their newfound joy. Whispers of her brother's lingering presence haunted her thoughts, creeping in like an unwelcome draft. She knew that eventually, she'd have to confront the tumult brewing within her family, the echoes of her fractured relationship with Rodrigo stirring unease deep within her. "How do you feel about heading into town again next week?" Rafael proposed one evening, his voice breaking through her musings like a lifeline. "I think it's time to get more supplies and maybe pick up some seeds for your garden." Rosa hesitated, recalling the last time she had faced the townspeople. What if they still think of me as just his sister? "I'm afraid they won't see who I've become." "Rosa, you've already shown them you're not defined by your past. You stood up to Rodrigo. You've got to believe in who you are now," he replied, taking her hands in his. The warmth of his touch settled any lingering anxiety, halting her spiraling thoughts. Taking a deep breath, she nodded, feeling the flicker of determination ignite once more. "You're right, I can do this." The next week arrived, and the day of their venture felt charged with energy and anticipation. As they prepared to set out, Rosa dressed in a cherished blue dress that complemented the spring blossoms, a fabric that felt like a protective shield against the world outside. As they rode toward the town, she noticed how the landscape morphed, a shift in terrain mirroring her internal journey, the hills more familiar now as they approached the vibrant marketplace filled with colors and sounds. Each heartbeat drummed a rhythm of determination within her. Upon reaching the bustling hub, they dismounted, and Rosa felt the familiar buzz reverberate through her bones. Merchants shouted their wares, laughter filled the air, and children darted about, giving life to the space. Yet, for Rosa, the overwhelming energy brought back a tide of unease. "Stay close," Rafael murmured, and she could sense his protective presence brushing against the edges of her anxieties. Like the two sides of a coin, the townsfolk's gazes shifted between curiosity and wariness as they moved through the crowd. The whispers began to swirl around them, remnants of her past igniting a familiar sense of vulnerability. "Look, it's her, the one that turned against her family." One voice pierced the air, drawing attention like a thread unraveling a well-worn tapestry. Rosa felt as if the earth had fallen away beneath her. Panic rose, squeezing at her lungs with violence. But as she glanced at Raphael, his steadfast gaze held her in place. "You're not alone. Remember that." She straightened her spine, gathering the bits of courage that had become her foundation over the last few months. "Yes, that's me. And I'm not ashamed of who I am anymore," she declared, her voice rich with new strength. Their eyes met, a fierce determination shimmering between them. The crowd seemed to pause, as if temporarily stunned by the unexpected declaration. Brief conversation silenced, and doubt filtered through the ranks, mingling with the acceptance she longed for. Gradually, some mothers who had nurtured her through childhood stepped forward. "We've heard of your bravery, Rosa. It's impressive," one of them remarked. "People change, and so can stories." Rosa swallowed her fears and leaned into the camaraderie being offered. For the first time since arriving, she felt the tremors begin to soften within her, and the bonds of the past fray under the weight of her resilient newfound presence. With Raphael at her side, they navigated the market together, weaving through laughter and vendors vying for attention. Rosa engaged with the merchants, surprised at how easily conversations flowed, her knowledge of gardening enticing a few into deeper discussions. "I never thought I'd enjoy this so much," she confessed to Raphael as they picked out seeds for her garden. "Talking to people, just being a part of this." "You're proving that you belong here, just as much as anyone else," he replied, his approval invigorating her spirit. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Rosa approached the community center, a larger building used for gatherings and celebrations. Her heart raced at its presence. The air shifted, becoming charged, as she faced the doors that marked the steps toward confronting her past. "Are you ready for this?" Raphael asked, his steady voice cutting through her rising anxieties like a calm ocean on a stormy day. "With you by my side, I am," she replied, squeezing his hand for reassurance as they stepped through the entrance. Inside, townsfolk began to gather for a meeting, one Rosa knew would address the recent changes in the community. The atmosphere buzzed with chatter, and they quickly hushed as she and Raphael entered. Her presence felt more than noticed. "Welcome, Rosa," an elder spoke up, his voice warm but edged with a hint of uncertainty. "It's good to see you back in town." Rosa took a deep breath, allowing the tension to swirl in her chest, but determination overrode the trepidation. "Thank you," she replied, stepping further into the space. "I've worked hard to change the narrative of who I am. I'm more than my past." The quieter murmurs flowed through the gathering, a collective curiosity echoing in the air. "What's essential is that you're a part of our community," another voice rang out, this one from a neighboring woman she recognized vaguely from her childhood. "We all have our pasts. Look at how the seasons change. We all grow and adapt." "Perhaps we can learn from each other," Rosa added, her voice growing firmer as she felt the support of Raphael beside her. "There's room for everyone in this town, including me." The shift was palpable, as flickers of acknowledgement passed between the townsfolk. She could feel the walls she had anticipated bracing against her slowly crumble under the weight of acceptance. Raphael's hand remained firmly on her back, a gentle grounding presence that shepherded her through the storm. Their conversations rose to a fervor as folks began to share their own stories of growth, resilience, and the struggles they had faced, mirroring Rosa's journey in ways that began to create an intricate tapestry of interconnectedness. As the discussions unfolded, Rosa's anxiety transformed into a sense of purpose. Here, amidst the voices of those who surrounded her, she realized her strength, that she was indeed a part of this community, woven into its very fabric, and she could navigate her life on her own terms. Hours later, as they exited the community center, the sun began to set, painting the sky in strokes of vivid oranges and purples, a stunning backdrop for the fresh start unfolding in Rosa's heart. "Look at you," Raphael said with a grin, his eyes dancing with pride. "You embraced it all, the fear, the vulnerability, and you stood tall." "I couldn't have done it alone," she countered, feeling a familiar warmth suffuse her cheeks as their bond deepened under the starlit sky. You've helped me every step of the way." "Together we're stronger," he replied, leaning closer, their shared moments buzzing like electricity in the surrounding space. That night, as they settled beneath the blanket of stars, Rosa reflected on the weight of the day. She could finally feel the changes carving out new paths within her, paths where trust could flourish. She had transformed from a woman shackled by her history to someone ready to embrace the full canvas of her life. With the warmth of Rafael's presence beside her and the promise of tomorrow beckoning, Rosa Alvarado was ready to welcome all that her future held, knowing she would shape her narrative, not as a shadow of what had been, but as a brilliant testament to courage, love, and growth. With the dawn of a new day, Rosa Alvarado emerged from a night filled with dreams of courage and connection. The sun stretched over the Montana landscape, casting a golden light that filtered through the curtains, illuminating the small cabin where she and Rafael had begun to build a life together. Each ray of sunlight felt like a gentle reminder of the warmth that now filled her heart, chasing away the shadows of her past. As she prepared breakfast, the familiar sounds of morning enveloped her, the chirping of birds, the rustle of leaves, and the low sounds of livestock beginning their day. The cabin smelled of fresh bread baking, a result of her determined efforts to create a home. She hummed softly to herself while kneading the dough, the rhythmic motion calming her thoughts. Rafael entered the kitchen, running a hand through his tousled hair. The sight of him, shirt sleeves rolled up to his elbows, a trace of flour still dusting his cheek from the previous night's baking, made her heart flutter. "Good morning, Rosa," he said, his voice a warm invitation to start the day. "Only if you're joining me," he shot back, a playful glimmer in his eye. She felt an electricity sparking between them, a connection that was becoming increasingly undeniable. As they ate together, their conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and playful teasing, a wonderful contrast to the weighty silences Rosa had felt previously. They discussed plans for the garden, the children at the community center, and the upcoming gathering where she hoped to facilitate deeper connections among the townsfolk. "I've been thinking, maybe we should also start a cooking class this week," Rosa suggested, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I can share some of the recipes my mother taught me. The community would love to learn, and it's a great way to bond." Rafael chuckled, shaking his head in disbelief. "You've become quite the impresario, haven't you? I can already see folks flocking to learn how to bake Rosa's famous bread. I think they'd be more interested in the stews and pies," she countered with a laugh, feeling the butterflies in her stomach dance. "But really, I want to create a space for everyone to come together, laugh, and share stories." He nodded thoughtfully, admiring her passion. "That's the spirit, Rosa. You're bringing life back to this community, and they need that." After breakfast, they stepped outside to embrace the brisk morning air. As the sunlight filtered through the trees, Rosa felt invigorated and inspired. The day sprang to life around them. Bees buzzed among flowers, birds sang melodies, and a sense of shared purpose ignited in her heart. As they walked toward the community center, excitement bubbled through Rosa. Last night's gathering had laid the groundwork for connections deeper than she had anticipated, and she now envisioned extending that warmth into more communal activities. Upon reaching the center, she found townsfolk eagerly preparing for their weekly meeting, buzzing with chatter and laughter. Rosa approached the gathering, her nerve fluttering as she took a deep breath. "Can I have everyone's attention?" she called, and a hush fell over the room, eyes turning towards her in anticipation. "I want to propose something new for our community, an event where we share our recipes, our traditions, and create something together." A murmur of interest spread through the crowd, accompanied by nods of agreement. The energy shifted, and she felt the room filling with acceptance. "Let's hold a cooking class this week. We can share not only food, but stories, laughter, and the comforting embrace of community." "Count me in," one woman shouted from the back, and soon others chimed in, echoing their support. Rosa felt her heart swell with hope. As discussions unfolded about the upcoming class, Rafael remained by her side, a quiet strength that steadied her resolve. He offered insights on how to organize everything, materials needed, ideas for recipes, even how to decorate the center. "Why don't you teach them how to make your legendary apple pie?" he suggested with a grin, recalling how impressed they'd all been one evening when Rosa had baked her first pie. Laughing, she replied, "Only if you're my assistant. I need someone to roll out the dough while I monitor the spice blend." "I'm in," he agreed, his smile brightening like the sun above them as he leaned closer. "You're going to be amazing. Days turned to weeks, and the cooking class transformed into a beloved tradition within the community. They gathered each week, laughter echoing against the walls of the center. Childhood tales shared while sizzling pans filled the air with sumptuous aromas. Rosa flourished as a teacher and a friend, nurturing the bonds forming between them all. Among the laughter and community spirit, however, Rosa's thoughts would occasionally drift to the shadows of her past, especially as she sensed the reluctant presence of her brother Rodrigo, looming just beyond the periphery of her life. Those familiar echoes of his contempt would occasionally pierce through her newfound joy, reminding her of the violent and chaotic weight that could yet threaten all she had built. One evening, as they gathered after a particularly spirited class filled with culinary successes and shared desserts, Raphael caught her gaze, his brow furrowing with concern. "Rosa, is everything all right? You've been a little distant tonight." Taking a deep breath, she shared her fear. "I just worry that my past won't stay buried. I can still feel the tension in the air when I think about facing Rodrigo again. There's a part of me that expects him to show up and destroy everything I've built here." Raphael's expression softened with understanding. "You've fought to rebuild your life, Rosa. Whatever shadows linger from your past, remember, they don't define your future. You're stronger than you know and have proven that time and time again." She contemplated his words and noticed with a newfound clarity that they resonated with fierce truth. Perhaps it was time to fully confront Rodrigo, to finally sever the ties that had threatened to hold her captive. The next week, as the sun rose over the mountains, Rosa felt an unexpected clarity pour through her. The sense of uncertainty that had lingered began to solidify into a resolve. She would no longer let her brother dictate the narrative of her life. It was time to reclaim her power once and for all. As the weekly gathering approached, the townsfolk packed into the community center, chattering excitedly about the upcoming festivities. Rosa stood front and center, her heart racing, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Tonight we not only celebrate our friendships and the recipes passed down through generations, but we also reaffirm the strength and resilience of this community that continues to support one another." Cheers erupted from the crowd, and as Rosa basked in their enthusiasm, her determination surged. "So I ask you all to join me in something brave. If any of you have a personal story about overcoming adversity, I invite you to share it tonight." The air thickened with anticipation, and her heart pounded as she awaited the responses. One by one, people began to step forward, revealing pieces of their own struggles. A widow finding strength to start anew after loss, a mother fighting to provide for her children, and friends who had battled demons of addiction. Each tale wove deeper connections, snipping the strings of isolation that so many felt. Rosa could see their pain, their triumphs, and their unyielding spirit take flight in the warmth of community. But as one story concluded, a hush fell over the room. "I'll go next," a voice rang out, striking with disbelief that echoed from the back. It was none other than Rodrigo, stepping through the door as if a sandstorm had blown in and knocked the wind out of her sails. Time slowed as he entered. His presence prickled her skin with dread, and a hush washed over the crowd. Everyone turned, and Rosa could hear her heart racing in her chest as she met his gaze. "What are you doing here?" Rosa managed to say, her voice steady despite the turmoil brewing within her. He smirked, a cruel glint in his eye. "Just came to see what kind of circus you've built after throwing me out." "Leave," she responded, her words firm. "You're not welcome here. You lost that right when you chose to torment our family." Rodrigo stepped forward, the crowd parting around him, disbelief mingling with anticipation. "She's right. You made your choices, Rosa. You'll always be the girl who was too weak to hold this family together," he taunted, words laced with disdain. A wave of anger surged through Rosa, but ignited something deeper: courage. The eyes of the townsfolk were on her, and she felt the connection they had built over the weeks, the strength in numbers. "Rodrigo," she said, her voice rising with tension but steady and clear. "You don't get to define me anymore. I've found my strength. This community is my family now." His laughter echoed, chilling the room. "Family? These people? You think they will stand by when the real truth comes out?" "I won't let you intimidate me," she said, rising to confront her past, her voice unwavering. "You may have once held the reins, but now, I am free. I choose to be free." The crowd leaned in closer, a breathless anticipation in the air. Rosa felt the tension building not just within her, as her past was laid bare, but between the walls of the room as the impact of her boldness filled the space. As visibility returned to her determination, Rosa knew a confrontation would be inevitable, but she felt more fortified than ever. She had a community standing with her as mountains, and together they could withstand whatever storm came next. A low murmur arose in the crowd, and with unwavering hearts, the townsfolk began to step closer, voicing their support. "We stand by you, Rosa," a familiar voice declared, and one by one, others echoed the sentiment, wrapping her in a blanket of acceptance. Rebuffed by the solidarity surrounding her and the fading shadows of her fears, Rosa's strength blossomed into a vibrant resolve. She would no longer be defined by the past, but by the courage to transcend it. Rodrigo, realizing he had miscalculated, turned to see the rallying support behind Rosa and felt the hum of tension shift. "You'll regret this," he said, retreating, but Rosa saw the fear darting behind his eyes as he backed away. "Not as much as you will," she countered, her heart gliding in a newfound freedom as Rodrigo left the room, his presence dissipating like a fading shadow. Amidst the cheers and unity from her community, Rosa breathed in deeply, finally shedding the last vestiges of torment from her shadowed past. She felt a surge of relief wash over her, mingling with elation. Here, in this vibrant gathering filled with the essence of support, trust, and love, she knew she truly belonged. With the shadows of her past progressively falling away, Rosa looked towards her future with renewed excitement. She would continue to share her journey, to weave new narratives into the community tapestry, and most importantly, ensure that others had the space to share their stories. With Rafael at her side, she felt ready to embrace life, a woman unafraid to step boldly into the unknown, determined to live a life shaped by courage and love, no longer shackled by the chains of fear. In the weeks following Rosa's courageous stand, her once daunting reality transformed into a canvas filled with vibrant colors of growth and connection. The community that had once felt like a mere gathering of strangers now resonated as family. Laughter and storytelling intertwined as if they were threads binding them tighter together. Yet, despite the blossoming joy around her, an unshakable sense of foreboding persisted, whispering sinister reminders of her past. Each cooking class Rosa led bore similarities to the meals they shared decades ago, yet now she reveled in their unity and acceptance. The joy of mixing spices and kneading dough held a new depth, stitched with the warmth of shared laughter. But even as the sweetness of baked goods filled the air, lingering shadows hovered, foreboding reminders of her brother Rodrigo waiting in the wings. Rosa felt the tempest brewing. She worked diligently without succumbing to fear, putting together heartfelt menus for upcoming community gatherings. She planned special recipes that would illuminate their shared histories, igniting nostalgia and joy among the townsfolk. As the vibrant days passed, the town prepared for the Harvest Festival, a celebrated event of gratitude, feasting, and connection with nature's bounty. The air buzzed with excitement, but within Rosa, dread spun a web. Every evening, as the sun slipped away behind the mountains, she felt an unease settle deeper in her bones. On the night of the festival, as the townsfolk gathered around flickering lanterns strung high in the trees, the smell of roasting meats and delicious stews danced on the breeze like a siren's call. Laughter rang out, melodies of friendship vibrating through the night. Rosa observed the gathering with both warmth and wariness. Her heart sang at the vibrancy yet harbored a tendency to scan the edges of the celebration, looking for shadows. "Are you okay?" Rafael asked softly, noticing her distraction. He leaned closer, brushing his fingers against hers. "I'm fine," she replied, forcing a smile. "It's just, I can't help but feel like something's coming. I don't know how to shake it." "Just remember, you're not alone anymore. Whatever comes, we've got each other," he reassured her, his gaze steady as they stood together in the warm glow. With a grateful nod, Rosa inhaled the aroma of the feast, trying to settle her frayed nerves. She glanced toward the assembly of townsfolk who had become her family. She refused to allow shadows from the past to eclipse her present joy. As the evening unfolded, Rosa played her part, chatting and creating connections, encouraging others to share their stories while savoring the dishes everyone had prepared. Each laughter shared doused her fears in warmth and camaraderie. Just as she began to settle into the night, enjoying the sense of unity, a loud bang echoed through the warmth of laughter, drawing attention to the front of the gathering. "Open up, Rosa!" came a familiar voice, dripping with disdain. A rush of panic surged through her as she recognized the words, "Rodrigo." A hush fell over the crowd as eyes turned toward Rosa, uncertainty flickering in their depths. "What do you want?" she called out, trying to steady her voice, but fear snaked through her resolve. "Open this door, or I'll force it down," he bellowed, the menace clear in his tone. Raphael instinctively stepped closer, shielding her with his presence. "You don't have to do this, Rodrigo," he called back, a calm strength radiating from him. "You're not welcome here." "That's a matter of opinion, isn't it?" Rodrigo shouted, the sound of his voice echoing against the night sky. "Let's settle this once and for all." Rosa felt fear paralyze her, like ice gripping her chest. She stole a glance around and noticed the whispers spreading among the townsfolk, a mixture of concern and solidarity. "Don't let him intimidate you, Rosa," Raphael murmured, squeezing her hand. "You've shown so much strength. Remember who you are." "I won't let him control me any longer," Rosa whispered, summoning resolve. With a deep breath, she stepped toward the door, her heart racing as validation surged from the crowd. "Rodrigo, you need to leave. You lost the right to disrupt my life when you chose to abandon your family," she shouted, letting her voice rise, fueled by both fear and determination. "You don't get to come back and bully me or anyone else here." The murmurs from the crowd grew louder, the townsfolk rallying behind her with supportive calls echoing through the night. As she stood there, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Rodrigo's face. "You think these people will defend you? You're nothing to them, just a burden trying to mask the truth," he retorted, but the bite of his words lacked conviction. "I don't need to prove anything to you," Rosa declared, glancing at Raphael and then at the crowd, drawing strength from their warm, supportive energy. "What matters is who I choose to be, and I won't allow you to drag me back down into your darkness." Rodrigo's laughter came out hollow, a cruel facade crumbling. "You think your fairy tale can erase the monster I am? You can't escape me." Across the crowd, faces turned toward Rosa with encouragement. "We will stand by you, Rosa," someone shouted. The familiar voices of support coated her with reassurance, emboldening her to rise. "Maybe I can't erase our past, Rodrigo," she replied, shifting her stance firmly. "But I can choose my future, and you won't be part of it." Her voice rang out with undeniable strength, sending ripples of energy through those gathered. Rosa's pulse quickened as she sensed the power of unity enveloping the space, stabilizing her falters. "Nothing you say can hurt me anymore," she continued, fury and strength igniting the room. "You're a shadow of what family represents, and I refuse to let you redefine my life." "Enough!" Rodrigo shouted, his frustration peaking as he realized he was losing control. The murmur from the crowd crescendoed, an invaluable chorus reaffirming Rosa's stand. With one last glare, Rodriguez seemed ready to lash out again, but hesitation became evident as he processed the reality confronting him. "You'll regret this, Rosa," he warned through gritted teeth, retreating backward into the tempest he had unleashed. As he disappeared into shadows, Rosa felt the tension lift like a weight being removed. The townsfolk erupted into cheers, letting their applause spill over the space, reverberating through her like a warm embrace. "Rosa!" they cried, advancing toward her in waves, embracing her victory. Overwhelmed by gratitude and relief, Rosa found herself at the center of a joyful storm, buoyed by their support. "That was incredible," Raphael exclaimed, pulling her close. "You're remarkable, Rosa." Breathless, she barely contained her exhilaration. "I never would have made it without you and everyone else here," she admitted, her heart heavy with gratitude. "Thank you." With the stormy winds trailing Rodrigo's departure, Rosa breathed deeply, drawing in the strength of the community surrounding her. Here, in the warmth of their trust, she felt the past slowly releasing its grip, leaving her freer than she had ever been, a woman no longer bound by fear. That night, Rosa stood taller than she ever had before, knowing that while Rodrigo's presence still hovered in the distance, she would face any hidden storms hand in hand with her community. As dawn broke the following morning, Rosa stood by her window, watching the sunlight wash over the town, each ray illuminating the path of new beginnings. The storm had passed, and with it, the weight of her past was lifted. She could feel gratitude coursing through her veins, a stark contrast to the fear that once held her captive. After yesterday's confrontation with Rodrigo, Rosa felt alive, a fire ignited within her. She dressed quickly and stepped outside, inhaling the fresh morning air, which tasted like hope and renewal. Today would be the Harvest Festival, a time to celebrate the bounty of nature and the strength of community. "Hey, ready for today?" Raphael's voice pulled her from her thoughts as he approached with a wide grin, holding decorations for the festivities. "Yes, let's make it unforgettable," she replied, a smile blooming on her face. As they walked through town, inviting neighbors to join, each conversation was filled with warmth. Today, we celebrate our unity, Rosa conveyed, feeling stronger with each word. Her commitment inspired others, and the townsfolk responded with enthusiasm, pledging their support. The festival unfolded beneath vibrant banners and glowing lanterns hung from trees. Food stalls dazzled with colorful culinary creations, each played a testament to the diverse tapestry of their community. Laughter and music filled the air, crafting an atmosphere rich with joy. With evening settling in, the festival reached its peak. Rosa felt a surge of excitement as she stepped onto a small platform, gathering everyone's attention. The crowd quieted, eager to hear her words. "Everyone, thank you for being here today," she began, her voice steady and filled with emotion. "We gather not just to celebrate our harvest, but the strength we've built together. Yesterday, I faced a reminder of my past, a shadow that tried to haunt me, but with your support, I rose above it." Cheers erupted from the crowd. Rosa continued, emboldened by their encouragement. "Family isn't solely about blood, it's about the bonds we create. Together, we have proven that love and connection can conquer fear." As she spoke, a wave of realization washed over her. This wasn't just her victory, it was a community triumph. The crowd cheered and clapped, a chorus of agreement rising to the night sky. Her heart soared among the joyful sounds, her spirit buoyed by every smiling face before her. Then, just as the moment felt invincible, a shadow emerged from the darkening edge of the festival, slicing through the warmth of acceptance. Rosa's breath caught when she recognized the figure. Rodrigo, standing defiantly, a hard glint in his eyes. "Rosa," he called, his voice filled with venomous certainty. "We have unfinished business." An icy chill coursed through Rosa, but echoed within her was a powerful reminder of the community surrounding her. She turned to Rafael, who met her gaze, unwavering in his support. "Stay strong," he whispered, holding her hand tightly. With newfound determination, Rosa stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "Rodrigo, your games end here. You will not disrupt our joy or our lives." The crowd shifted, a protective wall forming around Rosa. "You think they'll save you?" Rodrigo sneered, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his demeanor as he registered the support surrounding Rosa. "You're still that scared little girl." "Not anymore," she asserted, feeling courage surge through her. "Your words can't touch me. I have found my strength through love and unity, and you're nothing but a shadow trying to drag me back." Rodrigo opened his mouth to respond, but the resolute cheers of the townsfolk filled the night, drowning out his voice. "Rosa, we stand with you," they shouted, affirming their loyalty. He shifted uneasily, glancing at the gathered families who unleashed their collective power, a living testament to the bonds they'd built together. "Leave now, Rodrigo. You're no longer a part of this community," Rosa declared, her voice azure. With a last scowl, Rodrigo retreated into the shadows from where he came, a defeated figure fading into the night. As the tension melted away, Rosa felt an unparalleled sense of liberation. With the reassuring warmth of the gathered townsfolk surrounding her, she realized she was exactly where she was meant to be, safe and free. The festival continued, laughter rising to the stars, buoyed by the victory that had taken place. In that celebration, Rosa and Rafael embraced the warmth of their shared triumph, knowing that together they would face whatever storms might come their way in the future. Hand in hand, they vowed to nurture the community bond they had forged, ensuring that the love shared would blossom for years to come. Tonight marked not just a celebration of harvest, but a deep-rooted miracle. Rosa's transformation from a frightened girl into a woman unafraid to embrace her journey, along with everyone who chose to stand with her. This newfound strength promised that together, they could create a legacy of unwavering support and love.